Hello everyone and welcome to an updated League Director tutorial. This is a multiple part series where I will show you how to create the similar transition between champions, how to export it in 3 different formats, and how to edit it using 2 different softwares. In this first part, I'll tell you about the program itself, what every tab does, and how to utilize the camera setting within the replay. I've made a video on how to install the update. If you meet any problems when installing it, I'll put the video in the description box. Hopefully it will fix the problem. After installing League Director, open it. It'll be met with this screen. In order for League Director to show all the settings and tabs, you have to run a replay. For the cinematics in my videos and intros, I like to use the practice tool games. I have pre-recorded some footage. Download and open the replay, and now you'll notice more tabs appear in your League Director. There should be 6 tabs: the rendering tab, the visibility tab, the recording tab, the timeline tab, the keybinding tab, and new to this update, the particle tab. The keybinding tab is pretty straightforward. Here you keybind pretty much everything in League Director to make your workflow easier. I personally keybind just the keyframes to make it easier for me to create sequences. Some things you might want to keybind are, as I said, the keyframes, and I like to separate mine in 3 keybindings only. I use the keybinding 5 for the playback speed keyframe, the keybind 1 for camera position and camera rotation keyframe, and I use the key 2 for all the other keyframes available. If you don't have a numpad on your keyboard, you might want to keyframe the camera movements too, since the prebinds are using the number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 on the numpad. 8 for forward, 5 for backwards, 6 to the right, 4 to the left, 7 pan left, 9 pan right, 1 pan up and 3 pan down. Moving on, we have a timeline tab. This is your main working tab. Here you have the controllers to start and pause the replay. You can skip 120 seconds forward or go back 120 seconds. You can play with the speed from 0 to 8 times. And then you have the keyframe section where you can create the sequences. The buttons here are the play sequence, the copy sequence, and then new sequence. Whenever you make a new sequence, this checkbox will self-apply. You must remember to always deselect it after playing a sequence, otherwise you won't be able to move your camera around. To select the keyframe, you have to press Shift and drag to select, and to delete the keyframe, just press Delete. If you want to create a new keyframe, remember to name it, otherwise it won't create a new one. To delete the sequence, you'll have to go in this folder and manually delete it. You'll know which sequence it is because the names will be the same as the one you gave them. Next we have the rendering tab. Here we set the mode of the game. Camera mode is whatever camera you choose to record with, for example FPS, manual or directed. Camera lock is to lock your camera on the X, Y and Z axis, but this doesn't work in the FPS mode. Camera attach always bugged for me, so I never got the chance to actually see what it does. Next we have the camera move speed, which by default is 500. This is how fast you'll be able to move the camera in the replay. Next is the field of view, and this is to change how wide of a view of the rift you have. The higher the value, the wider the frame. The near and far clip will define how close and how far from the camera point the image will render, as you can see here. The nav grid offset is to offset the character and the elements in the rift. The champions usually come a bit in the air, to say so, even if the value is set to 0. You can kinda see here the foot is like in the air. I found that -6 is the perfect value to have the champions look like they are stepping on the ground and not in the air. Following, we have the skybox drop down. Here are all the skybox options you have. Remember, Your video quality setting has to be on very high for the skybox to show, otherwise it will be black or this blue. Under are the settings to position the way the sun hits the environment and to position the skybox. The fog height and depth is what gives your rift and your sequence some flair. It basically puts a layer of mist over your rift. You can change the color of the mist and intensity playing with these values. The last is the depth of field. This will blur everything in the background and sharpen your main subject. The visibility tab is where you can take out or introduce what you don't need in your game, such as health bars and the UI. The user interface can be deselected one by one in the visibility tab, but I want to mention that the camera controller here can only be made invisible when you deselect all the UIs. Now the particles option. Here again is an all or nothing tab, where all particles will be deselected, but the creators of League Director gave us the particle tab, where we have a multitude of options and are named quite direct, but doesn't need a lot of playing with in order to figure out what each option does. When you type Akali, you see both the base and the skin I have on, and the particles you can play with, like Smoke Ring and when you deploy Twilight Shroud. For recording and exporting, we'll have the two same options we had before, WebM and PNG. And in my next video, I'll show you how to edit each one of these. This is it for this video. I hope this explains League Director to you and what each tab does. If you have any questions, just ask them in the comment section below and I'll answer as soon as possible. Until next time.